Today we're going to talk about attitudes and stereotypes and how the two relate and how they can also impact your behavior, a person's behavior. Attitudes, generally speaking, is just talking about your feelings or your beliefs, the way that you view a particular thing. Advertising. Advertising is all about attitudes and attitude formation, trying to get you to like a particular product and so on. So that's all that advertising does. Advertising, if you see a TV ad or radio ad, you hear something, or you see it online. Basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to like their product. They're trying to get you to have a particular attitude or belief toward it, and then they're trying to get you to get you motivated to go and actually purchase or use their product. So that's all that advertising is about. It's about attitudes. Now, the mere exposure effect basically says that the more times or the more often that you are exposed to something in particular, the more likely you are going to be to like it. So, in other words, that's why a lot of times we will see the same Pepsi commercial or the same Coke commercial. Things on TV, we see them over and over and over so much that we can basically repeat the dialogue without even seeing the commercial. But they found, research-wise, that the more times people see those things, we tend to express our like for that even more. In other words, we tend to give it more positive feedback. Now, attitudes can predict behavior, but they can't guarantee it. Okay, we can predict how somebody's going to respond in a certain way based upon attitudes they have. We can't guarantee it. The picture in the upper right, okay, from Little Rock Central High School in 1957. That is one of the most, I guess, best known pictures of the entire civil rights era. That happened on the first day that the Little Rock Nine were getting ready to enter Little Rock Central High School in Arkansas back in the 50s. And you can see, okay, the girl in the caption, okay, in the center of the caption, that's Elizabeth Eckford. She was one of the Little Rock Nine. There were 9 African American students getting ready to go to school there. You can see not everybody was thrilled with the fact that they were going to be entering their school. And in fact, they even had National Guard that were there trying to protect the 9 black students. Well, all the other students, the other black students, had gotten together the day before, and they had called one another and said, hey, we're going to all meet at a certain time, certain place, and they were all going to enter the classroom or the school at the same time. The only problem was Elizabeth Eckford did not get her phone call. And folks, this is back before cell phones and texting and all that stuff, so she missed her phone call, and that was a big phone call to miss, because the next morning she went in all alone. And you can see, you talk about like discrimination and prejudice and things like that. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes. That was major in that photo, and throughout that entire year at Central High School. Kind of interesting, because the woman immediately behind Elizabeth Eckford, you can see she's got her mouth wide open. She's screaming something, obviously in hatred and disgust. That is Hazel Bryan. Kind of interesting to note that about, I don't know, probably 2005, 2006, somewhere in that time period, maybe 2007, those two women, Elizabeth Eckford and Hazel Bryan, actually toured the United States together. They were down at Indiana University just, like I say, several years ago, speaking to various groups around the country about how horrible the prejudice and discrimination is Hazel Bryan obviously having gone through some attitude changes as she went through life and realized, what a vicious thing that prejudice and discrimination is. Now, like I say, this can, attitudes can predict behavior, they won't guarantee it. For example, in the lower left-hand corner there, you may have a belief that cheating on tests is bad. Okay, and that's what certainly we've tried to teach you throughout your school environment. So, but yet, let's say that occasionally people cheat on a test. So let's say that you cheat on a test. Well, then you have an issue because now you're saying that cheating's wrong, and you believe that attitude, but yet your behavior is going against your attitude. When that happens, we have an experience, we have a concept that we refer to as cognitive dissonance. In other words, when your attitudes and your behavior don't mesh, they don't match, it creates kind of an unpleasant tension. It creates kind of a turbulence, almost like an airplane going through a violent storm. Things are not in agreement. And so what happens with this is that people naturally try to get those things to go together. And in many cases, it's easier for somebody to change their attitude than it is to change their behavior. So when that happens, we kind of refer to that as cognitive dissonance. Now remember, cognitive is thinking. So really, that's what attitudes are. They're thoughts. And so it's kind of interesting. Let's go back to the cheating example. Let's say that you cheated on a test. You thought cheating was bad, but you cheated on a test. But then maybe you say, well, the teacher didn't really do a very good job, and because of that, in this instance, it's okay to cheat. So you've kind of made a little bit of an agreement there, between your thoughts and your behavior. Changing attitudes. How do you change somebody's attitude? Well, there's two basic ways. I always like teaching this unit, especially when it's around an election time, because people are trying, politicians generally are trying to persuade people in a million different ways to change their attitude about something. Generally, people are attracted to two different things, okay? They're either, they want the facts, they want the information, or it might be an emotional appeal. So like in a political struggle between two candidates, you might see an advertisement on TV for one candidate, and he's telling you all about his health care plan, his or her health care plan. And they go through all the facts and all the numbers and all that stuff. Now, to some people, that's what they really want to hear. They want to, see that you've got things mapped out. Other people get bored to tears that way. The facts are basically what we call the central route of persuasion. That's the main way that you usually try to persuade somebody. But the peripheral route is basically the emotional appeal. So you'll see sometimes where they'll have commercials where politicians, they're going around, they're shaking people's hands, they're having dinner with them, they're kissing the babies, they're doing all this kind of stuff because people get an emotional tug and they talk about, oh, what a nice person that politician is. And so they are more persuaded to like that particular person. Salespeople, they always use a technique a lot of times called the foot in the door phenomenon. What this basically means is that if you can get somebody to, let's put it this way, if you're trying to get somebody to agree to do something big for you, like let's say buy a car. I want you to buy a car from me. That's a big thing. What you may do is the salesman will try to get you to agree to some very small request instead of just trying to get you to buy the car. So first you go up and you may look at the car and you may say, I don't think so. It's too expensive or not the right color or whatever. And the guy's telling you, oh, but wait, you just got to sit in this car. You just come here and sit in this car. Just do me one favor, sit in the car. Well, if you sit in that car, then research tells us people are more likely to agree to the next thing that the person asks. So now the person's asking you to check out the stereo system. Then they're asking you to look under the hood. Before you know it, they've got you all over that car and they've got you on a 4-hour test drive. Okay? So it's called the foot in the door phenomenon. Basically trying to get you to agree to small tasks or small things before they throw the big one at you. Okay? All right. When we talk about attitudes, we can't help but talk about stereotypes as well. And there's two terms I really want to make sure that you understand the difference between. And that is prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice always refers to attitudes. It's what you think about a certain thing. Discrimination refers to behaviors. So I may not like freshmen, so I'm prejudiced toward freshmen. But discrimination, that's a behavior. I don't go tripping them down the stairs. So even though I may not like them, I may be prejudiced, but I may not discriminate. Hopefully that makes sense. But make sure you understand the difference between attitudes and behaviors there. Now, some people, when we talk about prejudice, a lot of people say, oh, I'm not prejudiced. I'm not prejudiced at all. But according to research, many of us, most of us, have a sort of deep down, what they call implicit prejudice. In other words, these are things that over the years have been kind of ingrained in us that we're not even aware that we have these prejudices, but we do. And so an implicit prejudice would be something that you're not really even aware of, but it's deep down in you, and it kind of guides your behavior sometimes, or guides your thoughts at least. Now, you guys have been taught for millions of years now that you've been in school. Stereotypes are bad. You shouldn't do them. They're based on a lack of information. 99% of stereotypes are inaccurate. But yet we still do it. That leads us to the question, why? If we still do it, it has to serve a function. And right now, I'll tell you, the function of stereotypes is that they make life easy for us. It's a whole lot easier for me to stereotype somebody as soon as I see them than to really take the time and the effort to get to know them. So that's the key function of stereotypes. Our mind will try and take the easy route out anytime we give them that opportunity. Okay, so our mind is lazy unless we force it to take that extra step. Okay, last thing here. Research shows us that, for example, if you are with like-minded individuals and you have a discussion, you're talking amongst those individuals, it tends to strengthen whatever attitudes are coming from that group. So, for example, if there's a bunch of people who are admittedly prejudiced, by having a discussion with other like-minded people, they're going to be more prejudiced when they come out of that discussion. By the same token, people who are not very prejudiced and they have a discussion with other like-minded individuals, they're going to come out of that meeting even being less prejudiced than they were before. So altogether, we know attitudes, they affect the way we act, they affect the way we think, and behavior in general. And stereotypes do the same thing.